Caught the office food thief accidentally, by user Alex Rural Magic. I am relatively new at my job, and it is not the most organized place. There is a full kitchen/break room with a full fridge/freezer and even an oven. There are no rules about the food in the fridge, i.e. some is there to share and some is private. I just stick to what I've brought and keep it in a small lunch bag to keep it from being confused with a shareable. Another thing, this is in rural NC and I am originally from New York. I've been here a while but there's still cultural differences that matter. So, apparently there has been a rash of food thefts, no one spoke about them, at least with me, and it seems that everyone was prepared to suffer in silence. So yesterday I brought my lunch in and it was leftover kori pollo, and it was spicy. I enjoy it spicy and it was a bit much even for me. I have learned that in this area people like things much sweeter and much less spicy than I am used to. So when I entered the break room for my lunch a bunch of people were standing around and one of the guys, Brent, was getting his blood pressure taken by the HR lady. I was concerned and came over and he immediately started yelling at me and telling me I tried to poison him. I was so confused, but after a whole back and forth I realized that Brent had stolen and attempted to eat my lunch and was claiming that I put an inedible amount of spices on it. I had to explain that I like spicy food. I didn't expect him to take my lunch and now that I'm looking back at it I'm shocked he knew it was mine. Like it's in a small floral lunch bag but I didn't put my name on it. So that is how everyone now knows that Brent is 1. A food thief and 2. Can't handle his spice. This is especially amusing to people because Brent is an older man over 6 feet and prides himself on being macho and I am a 5 feet nothing woman and the least intimidating person ever. Dr. I brought an extra spicy food that made a food thief think he was having heart palpitations. When I got 20 people fired because they tried to fire me, by user outrageous papaya 430. My accidental revenge that I didn't plan but I'll be damned if you back me into a corner. A few years ago, I was working at a popular petrol station, on a popular freeway. Unfortunately, one afternoon I'd had a freak accident reaching for my drink bottle, my core was obviously still developing, and I slipped a disc between L5S1. Side note, it was beyond anything I'd ever experienced. My mother dressing me as a grown adult, heavily relying on opioids as if I even so much as cough, my legs would crumble. Many months of physio etc. I was approved to return for minimal HRS. I understand it was a freak accident, and not at one point did I blame it on the company, but it happened at work which probably saved me years of spinal surgeries. Carrying on. One day back at work during a 4HR shift, I'd had a sore throat that day. Normally, we are allowed to grab a coffee once a shift. I asked the 2IC, let's call him Clifford, if it was possible to have a cup of slushy instead to soothe my throat. Clifford responded, yeah that's cool, just put it in a coffee cup. Which I did, following his guidance. Side note, I was soothed. The next morning at approximate 7 a.m., I awoke to an official email from this company stating I'm being suspended without pay due to a serious breach of conduct. Obviously, I'm baffled and pretty upset. I'm aware that I'm back on reduced hours, being watched, etc. etc. I reply and we set up a meeting in person 2 days later. Attending, me, my support person, the 2IC, the store manager, and 2 persons from HR which I'm sure they had to make a gigantic drive for. We sit down in an adjacent building. Still baffled. The store manager, hi, so we've called you here today for an offense that we can terminate you immediately. TBH, at this point I was absolutely shitting myself. What have I done? It was like when you go through airport customs and you're wondering if that kilo of cocaine was accidentally left in your carry-on. I ask them to elaborate. They begin with a very patronizing question which was the first red flag. Do you understand the definition of stealing? Me, still baffled, I would like to think so. The store manager begins, backstory to set the scene, he was 50 years old, very flamboyant. Monday, you drank a slushie, out of a coffee cup and that is a breach and considered stealing. At this point I was relieved because the 2IC was in the meeting, and I reacted like oh. This is all a misunderstanding, I asked Clifford before I touched anything. I thought it was same but double-checked and got permission. This MF, 2IC, looks me directly in my eyeballs, across the table and says, that never happened. The silence was palpable. My jaw was in my lap. My eyes are darting back and forth, thinking there's no way I'm being set up LMAO. 170 scenarios ran through my head. Confusion, shock, anger, then, acceptance. My back was fucked, I was trying my best to recover and now being accused of ripping petrol station off by 0.03 cents worth of slushies so the managers could get a bonus from getting rid of me. This is my favorite part. Everything melted away. The anger, the unjust, everything. I let out a big sigh and I started smiling. I looked directly at the store manager, who unfortunately for him underestimated my observation skills. A week prior, mind you, there was plenty of other offenses. I saw him purposely knock a packet of Oreos off the shelf following an oops, I guess I'll have to write that off for my morning tea meeting he. At the time, I didn't even think about it. I don't care. You do you. But now? I said all right. But if I am confused, let me clarify something. I stared down the store manager, laid out what had happened, and asked him in HR if that would be considered stealing. Without breaking eye contact, I witnessed his soul leave his body. I sensed HR do a slow pause and turn. I quickly moved on. I was taking everyone down. Next, the 2IC. Who I also had nothing against, but here we are. He was freshly married, 2-year-old and a baby on the way. He was also fucking another cashier, let's call her Trina, in the bathrooms during work. Again. I minded my own damn business, even though I thought he was a POS. I looked at him, then the manager, then HR, and asked if the 2IC was a reliable source of information, seeing as he's having sex in the bathroom, cheating on his wife, etc., another one down. By this point HR are needing a defib. Then I threw in that half the staff are smoking weed on their break, no hate, but it was more to throw shade that the manager is useless. While I was at it, I truly only liked 2 people that worked there, from a very busy 24 HRS store. I went on for the next 30 minutes about every single breach I had seen in the last week and let them know I could definitely help them out with more information, etc. The meeting was abruptly ended. 3 days later, I was still offended, but had gathered myself and I thought FK them, I'm young, I'll move on. HR called me and asked me to come in, and I had absolutely prepared myself to be fired and I was already mentally checked out, recognizing that there's no way I could go back and play nice with people that threw me under the bus. I sit down. HR are groveling. There's probably some sort of court case I could have followed. But again, I was young and ready to burn the bridge. They offered me a 2IC job. Oh? What happened to Clifford? They tell me that he and Trina have quit because Clifford's wife was trying to pull her through the safety barrier every time she went on shift. Also, they fired 18 people for breaches after going through a lot of footage. This included staff eating expired food, etc. I asked them to give me some time to think about. I walked back over to the main store. There is my manager in tears, packing his stuff up in the office into a cardboard box like some sort of movie scene. I couldn't help myself. I had a spring in my step. I asked him why would he be crying? What's wrong? He told me through tears he's going on leave, blah blah blah. I quit 3 days later and went to another country on credit card. Best 2 weeks of my life. Happy to answer any questions. My competitive friend was always insulting my wine, so I tricked him into sampling and insulting his own, by user Django3401. During the pandemic, I started making wines, beers, and meads for my friends. At the time, we lived in a country where it was hard to get alcohol and, due to the virus, we were all locked out of our primary supplier for over a year. No one could get alcohol. So, I started brewing again after a 15-year hiatus, dollar-upplying my community, so to say. Well, it really irked this guy that people would trade me things for my wines and meads. It also really drove him nuts that I knew how to malt and basically make beer from feed grain, no home brew supply shops within 2,000 miles. So, at every opportunity, he was just piss insults on my wine. And yes, it was simple country wine but well crafted using local fruits. Clear. Balanced. Strong. Wapatui is what we used to call it back home. His wife would back him up. I always thought this was strange because I was delivering trunkloads of wine to my friends and people would hardly ever touch his wine at parties. Anyway, we were having a sampling night, which is how I met most of my people. And in front of the whole room full of people he pisses insults over this wine I'd poured. Well, I said, you made that one. I didn't want you to feel left out. They stayed 5 minutes max and shuffled out. She believes in use and throw. So I blocked her Netflix, by user complex dare 7451. So, my best friend is a selfish person. She will remember me when she needs something. Like getting her phone recharged or to share my ODT subscriptions, without paying back. And since I earn well and I considered her my friend, I thought this was just my way of telling her that I am her friend and never bothered. She always used my Netflix account. Then there was a phase where I needed her to be there. Just to listen and to support. However, she was too busy, and when I complained, she said, "You are always finding ways to be unhappy." So, I started logging her out of Netflix. Changed my password. She asked. I shared the password. But would log out every day. She even tried OTP-based login. And I, as her good friend, never denied sharing OTP with her. However, as soon as she logs in, I would log her out. She is baffled now. She can't understand what's happening. That's my petty revenge. Edit: I didn't expect this post to blow up like this. I would like to answer some of the questions here. Maybe my post wasn't very clear. 1. Of course, I am no longer friends with her. Before I logged out of that friendship, I took my petty revenge. Revenge is petty for a reason. 2. I have been a real good friend to her. I have helped her prepare for exams, have helped her in both monetary as well as emotional terms. I have even done things for her family. However, I never received any such reciprocation, and I never used to care about that till the incident where I really needed a friend. So, yet. 3. I am a woman. So, there's no other angle here. Some comments suggested that I am a man. 4. She is out of my Netflix and my life for good. Peace. Sorry, it's not in my job description, by username Repair6017. Several years ago I worked a sales job I hated. I was brand new, barely given any training, like a half day to learn how to operate their system. One of my co-workers who sat next to me was one of the top sales reps in the department. The purpose of sitting a newbie and someone like her together was so the noob learns. But, teaching junior reps is technically not in her job description. That leads me to a day I have a potential sale on the phone and I got stuck on product knowledge due to my newness. I asked her a simple yes/no question and she tells me, "Sorry. It's not in my job description to help you." I ended up trying to find someone else for help, and by the time I got the answer, the prospect already hung up. Shortly afterwards, I left that company and found my footing where I currently have been nearly the last decade. We got a new sales rep on our team last week. Guess who it is? She knows who I am too. A few minutes ago, she just asked me a product-related question and I said those same exact words back to her with a huge smirk on my face. Sorry, it's not in my job description. Ha 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 ha. Finally. Justice is mine. She lost the sale because of the same reason I lost mine. To top it off, my boss is probably gonna talk to me about this later. IDGAF.